The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and today I'm very excited to have David Jennings join us. David, welcome.
Hey Michael, thanks for having us.
So David, you and I were just chatting before. We always enjoy our conversations and we know each other now for quite some time. So it's great to have you back on because you were actually on the podcast a long time ago. But at that point, we featured you and your story more around the SEO kind of consulting business that you had. So you're based just outside of Melbourne, Australia, and you walked us through kind of how you built that business, how you later kind of got yourself out of that business by putting systems and people in place. Today, what I really want to focus on is more around your current business, which is called Systemology. And you have a software platform for that. You also have a team of systemologists, people that you've kind of certified to teach this and actually implement it into other organizations. Before we kind of get into the details of that, I want to start us off by just talking about the importance of systems, because I think many consultants have this belief. I certainly did, years ago, earlier stage, and just, as you're a smaller kind of consulting firm, and it might just be a solo consultant, you don't necessarily think that you need systems, but I've completely reversed my stance and belief on that over the years, because systems I've seen are so integral. And in fact, I think they create massive value, even if you are a solo consultant or you work with a couple of contractors. But let's turn this over to you. Like, how do you view systems and just what's your thoughts, your beliefs around systems for different stages or sizes of consulting types of businesses?
All businesses are a collection of systems. And I think it's really important to be able to identify those systems. So I like to think about your business as one big system. And then underneath that, you've got a range of subsystems, which might be your marketing system, your sales system, your delivery system, your finance system. And within each of those areas, you can keep drilling down and you'll find underneath each of those different areas, there's a handful of systems that deliver the bulk of the result for that subsystem. So those exist, like those systems are there and they exist, whether you document them or not. You have a way of doing things. So for me, I think where a lot of consultants get wrong or head down a different track with regards to systems is they have all of these preconceived notions on what systems are. They think, they're these in-depth process, line by line, bullet by bullet, screenshotted, epic documents that are going to take weeks to prepare. And oftentimes that's what someone thinks an SOP or a system is. And then they go, I don't need that because I'm a consultant. It's just me. No one's going to be able to follow those because I'm just doing it anyway. I don't have a team. What's the point? And part of what I try and help them do is to change their perspective on what a system is. A system could be something as simple as a short Loom or a Zoom recording of you doing a particular task. It could be a small checklist that says, when this inquiry comes in, I email off this template, I add them into my database, and it could be very high level. So particularly when you're smaller, it's just about becoming aware of these systems that are currently happening and capturing them high level, because it starts to infuse systems thinking into your business early on. And that's the time to do it when you're small, because it's very difficult to try and insert systems into your business and systems thinking as you grow and the culture gets set inside your business and you bring on new team members. But if from day one you say, hey, this is how I issue out an invoice in MYOB, here's a short 2-minute Loom video showing you how it's done, right from day dot, you're programming into your team that you have a way of doing things, which is really, really critical when you want to grow and scale your consultancy business beyond you.
Yeah. And I think the other part of this too, that I see as a really big benefit for consultants is even if you're solo, just going through the process of documenting how you go about doing what you do can help you to identify ways to improve, right? To essentially identify inefficiencies and waste, and then to create greater efficiency, because you get to actually look at, well, here's the process that I'm going through. Does this make the most sense? Is there a way to make it shorter, deliver it faster, create a better result? And then even though I'd say probably most consultants don't get into the business of consulting with the idea of selling their business, if you are doing everything yourself in your business, and if you don't have systems, if you don't have SOPs, if you don't have people that you can bring in to help you to deliver or to run your business, then you actually don't have anything of value that you can't sell, right? It's not possible to sell because you are the business. Remove yourself from it, and then there's no value. So even if you're not thinking about selling today, having systems, number one, I believe will help you to make your business more efficient, therefore likely more profitable. Number two, you'll also probably be able to deliver greater results for your clients because, again, you're viewing the system of how you interact with clients or whatever you're doing, and you can then strengthen and improve that, therefore creating better results for clients. Three, having the systems in place allows you to then bring in team members or people when you need them, right? Because now you can actually say, hey, here's how I go about doing this. Can you do this, right? And so that process becomes easier. And then I'd just say fourth would be that you're making your business more valuable because now you've documented how you go about doing things. Does that sound about right to you, David? Am I missing anything there or anything else you want to add to that?
One thing that jumps out at me with the consultant is when you're small and solo and you're doing everything, you're doing the invoicing, the sales, you're doing the marketing, the delivery, everything. Generally speaking, there are some areas in the business that you as a consultant, you might not like to do. You might not like the admin of setting up a project. You might not like the selling component. You might not like hopping on social media and consistently posting. But there are a certain number of tasks that need to happen for your business to function. You need to market consistently to get that awareness, to get the attention, to get you leads. You have to sell consistently to make sure that you're closing. So it's not this feast-famine situation that a lot of consultants go through. So what tends to happen is the consultant will ignore the areas that they might be weak or they don't enjoy while they've got a client. And it's not until that client finishes up or moves on or whatever that then they start to scramble and they have to think, oh, I've got to do this and that. So part of getting a system in place as well is it helps you to identify parts of the business that aren't getting the attention and the love but are required. You can create a system and process and then makes it really easy to plug in an admin person or a salesperson to help with that piece that you may or may not like. And I see it all the time with consultants. Something might happen where they start to self-sabotage because they don't really like the onboarding process or the setup process. So they're in sales mode and they're talking to a lead and they're trying to close someone. And in their brain, whether they're consciously aware of it or not, they're kind of like pushing the client away, not wanting to sell them because they know deep down that's going to equal pain. Because then I have to deliver the work and do the work and I'm already full, I'm already stressed out. Do I really want to add another one in the mix here? There's little things like that that go on, particularly when you're solo, that getting your systems and your processes down and identified is the first step to like reducing that bottleneck and really opening it up so that you can take on more capacity. That's a biggie for consultants.
Yeah. And just to add a little more context or maybe a bit of an illustration example, this is relevant whether you are a solo consultant or one of our clients in our Clarity coaching program, he ran a very healthy 7-figure consulting business. And as I had conversations with him, it became pretty evident that he was still spending time in areas of the business that, number one, he didn't really enjoy that much, but also like weren't high value for him. And so I said, well, like, do you have, like, why are you doing this? He's like, well, I don't know. I just kind of end up doing it. So what we talked through was like, let's get a system in place. Let's actually have you document, right? Many of the things that you teach, David, like really clearly document how are you doing this, right? What are the steps that you go through, and then get it off and you can teach somebody else to do that. And so that then freed him up to go out and actually do the things that he not only enjoys doing in the business, but actually creates a lot more value. So why don't we shift into the critical client flow, because this is an exercise, right, that you developed, and we've gone through this, and you and I have had conversations around this, and you've actually kind of demonstrated this live to a group of our clarity coaching clients in one of our masterminds that you joined us on. I'd love if you could just take a few minutes and walk everyone through what is the critical client flow, like why is it so important, and then maybe just break it down so people could start to kind of think through this and maybe even attempt it themselves to begin with.
Yeah. So, and I think anybody listening to this right now can follow along with this exercise. It's a really simple exercise that'll give you excellent clarity. So it's called the critical client flow, and you just need an A4 bit of paper and think about it in terms of your business. And what we're going to do is describe and capture the client and the business journey of delivering your core product or service. So we just start off and we first identify who's your target audience. Then we identify what is the primary product or service that you're selling them. So as a consultant, I always like to think in terms of what is the product that would be a gateway to the rest of your products and services. What is the first thing that you would sell to your dream client? Start there. Maybe it's a deep dive discovery call. Maybe it's a certain number of sessions that you sell with the client. Think about what that is. And then we map the journey that from grabbing the prospect's attention. So how do you actually grab their attention? And in this exercise, I always tell people, capture what you're currently doing, not what you would like to be doing. Because part of the exercise, if you go, oh, I'd love to be doing social media, but I'm not really doing social media. Well, don't put it down on the critical client flow. You might go, well, I get referral business. I do a little bit of SEO. I speak on stage or podcast, whatever it is. Just capture what you're currently doing in that first line. Now, the aim of the game here is to, in the book, Systemology, I have like a little template that there's not really that much space. There's only room for 2 or 3 words in each one of these boxes, and it's by design. So you don't over complicate your business here, but you start off thinking, how do you get people's attention? Then we move down the page and we think, how do we handle the incoming inquiry? When someone is interested, are they filling out a form on your website? Are they calling you? Are they sending you an email? And then just write a few words in each of these boxes as you move down the page. Next, think, what happens with that inquiry? Like, do you have a qualification process? Are you hopping on a phone? Are you getting them to fill out a questionnaire? And then keep moving down the page. What then, once they're qualified, do you do? How do you then sell them? What does your sales process look like? Do you have a Zoom webinar or a Zoom session with them where you explore further? And what happens after that? Do you then prepare a proposal? So as you're moving down the page, and these are just boxes, there's 2 or 3 words in each box, and we only capture what we're currently doing. After we go, okay, how do we issue out a proposal? Then how do you take the money? Like, do you invoice a deposit or 50% upfront or something? Or is it all on completion? Keep moving down the page. Then how do you onboard the client when they actually pay? Do you enter them into your CRM, or do you have a project management software? Or how do you loop in your team at that point if you've got one, or contractors? Or how do you get it onto the calendar? Those sorts of things. Move down the page. Then the one underneath that would be, how do you deliver the core product or service? This one, by design, keep it very high level. And then finally, how do you then deliver the product, hand over, and get them to repeat or upsell them into another program? Just visually mapping this down, you should be able to get it to a point where you can go to someone who doesn't really know your business, and you can show them this A4 bit of paper, and they should be able to follow along and go, I understand your business. This is clear to me when you talk it through. That's the sign that you've got it correct. Sometimes when you do this, there's patches as well, things missing. And that's little warning signs as well. Like, oh, I don't have a way that I'm onboarding clients. Well, that's a little bit of a warning sign for you that that's probably going to be a problem area.
Yeah, no, I really love this because you're taking, really, this is a map of everything that you do to first bring people into your world. How do you then move them from being interested to having that conversation to into your sales process of becoming a client, then onboarding that new client, delivering the product or service, and then actually handing off, or what happens at the end of that engagement. And I think the powerful thing about this is once you have that, you can actually now start to figure out, as you said, is something missing, or how do you improve? But from your perspective and just in your experience, David, of doing this with so many different business owners, what's the area of greatest value? Like, let's say somebody has now mapped this out. They've been listening to what you've been taking them through. And so they've gone, okay, yeah, like I do these things to bring people into, to having a conversation. Like I'm doing some marketing or LinkedIn posts or advertising. And then next, now having a conversation. And oh yeah, like I don't have a script for my conversation. Like maybe I should develop that. How would you just suggest that people kind of start to use that map of the process that they're taking people through?
Yeah. The whole premise of this first step is to answer the question, if I'm going to systemize my business, where do I start? What are the 10 to 15 most important? By identifying the critical client flow, we identify the top 10 systems that are important, because this is all about how do you deliver, how do you make money, and that's worthy of systemizing. To narrow in further, the two things I think about is, where is the pain? So as a consultant, you have a sense already. When you do this map, you'll get an idea. You're like, hey, I don't have any leads. Well, I've got to think about my lead generation systems. Or you'll go, oh, I can get enough leads because I'm great at marketing, but I just can't seem to close anyone. Okay, well, then it's a sales issue. Or you might go, it comes to the delivery and I'm already maxed out. I've got full clients. I just can't take on any more. Well, maybe we need to narrow into the operations. So there's usually a couple of ways. Going to where the pain is one thing. Also, the other one that sometimes you can consider, if that's not immediately obvious, is what areas do you avoid? As a consultant, when you look at this critical client flow, is there a certain area where you just go, oh, I'm not going to look at this piece or that piece, or it'll become more obvious to the person, and it varies significantly. Like I've worked with some consultants that are great at marketing, and really they have great lead flow because they have existing businesses and they're just bolting on products and services to their existing business. And their lead generation method is, they have like two. It might be referral business and social media or AdWords or something like that. And we don't go into much depth in generating or creating more systems around lead generation because they have enough leads. They go, my problem is delivery. I have more leads than I can handle. Okay, well, let's then focus in on your delivery systems. So it will depend on the person. And oftentimes it's the biases and the strengths of the business owner. So you want to go to where they're weakest and start there.
And do you recommend that the business owner themselves, let's say, the founding consultant or the founder of the firm, and maybe it's a solo consultant or maybe it's somebody with a team, should they be doing the actual documenting and development of the systems, like writing out line by line, since that's what they are doing, like they're actually doing that work most often? Or should somebody else be helping them to, like, what's your the best practice to actually start developing these systems?
If you're solo and it's just you, then you're best off just really recording videos on everything that you do with regards to those steps. So when you have a sales process, just start recording all of your sales calls and put all of those sales calls into a Google Drive folder or Dropbox or something like that. And just class that as your system to start. Because at least then later on, we're giving someone to be able to sink their teeth in, look at what you're doing and pull the system from that. As you start to grow, and if you're running a consulting business with a small team, the more that you can take the business owner and the founder out of the equation for the documentation, the better. And if you've got someone who is handling the incoming inquiry, we'll find out what they're doing. Just identify who on your team is currently doing the task to a great standard and capture that. That's another reason why people get these misconceptions with business systems. They try and make them perfect and they say, I would love to be doing this or that. And sometimes you just get the biggest wins by going, how are we currently doing it? Let's consistently do that. Let's make sure that that's not dependent on anyone. That alone is a tremendous breakthrough, and it helps you to create a baseline, and then you can optimize and improve and tweak after that. Just don't try and the issue is with the business owner or the founder doing it right up front is they want to make it just perfect. They want to make a tweak here or there. They're a perfectionist. They've built this business from the ground up, and then that stalls them from getting it done. They get caught up and they don't see an immediate ROI for their effort on that work. So then in their head, they go, oh, there's, systems, they're important. They're not really urgent. I've got 100 other things I should be doing, and then they never get around to it. So that's why I always go, just keep it simple. Record videos of you doing the task, organizing, and save that into a central location. That is infinitely better than what a lot of consultants do.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early-stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early-stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
So let's say that somebody has gone through that process, identified the critical client flow. They've listed out, where their leads are coming from, what their sales process is like, the onboarding, delivery. Like they've done all that. Maybe they've also now identified areas that they don't have any real system around. Like they're not even doing it properly. So now they can go to work on that. They might also be able to go, okay, yeah, I've now developed a system, written down the things that I do here. They can go out and now try and find somebody like an admin to help them to take over that, or bring, some expert in or someone to actually run that area of their business. How else are people using systems? Like once they've documented this and it goes into some online repository, whatever that might be, whether it's, you guys have System Hub or somebody putting something into Google Drive, like whatever it is, how should people think about getting the most out of the systems once they've actually documented them?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that start to happen. The biggest, most important thing about systems is you're actually looking to create this cultural shift inside your team. And as the founder, you need to get to the point where you realize how important these systems are, and you're going to build a systems-driven business. Once that happens, that's a big part of it. Then the next piece is thinking about how you keep the systems front and center. Because oftentimes, if they're just sitting in a Google Drive somewhere and, the only time anyone ever looks at them is maybe when they're onboarding and a new team member comes on board, that's very different from keeping it right under someone's nose by having a project management platform. And every time a task is assigned to them, there is a system associated to that task if it's a recurring task. So you don't create systems for once-off tasks like, hey, Mr. Tech Assistant, I need you to edit this WordPress page over here and change this sentence here because it's wrong. We don't create a system for that necessarily, but you might have a system for once a month, I need my tech person to hop in and update all of my plugins and clear out my spam comments. And so you look for the recurring tasks, you create a system for it. And this is the 80-20. We find the 20% of the systems that deliver 80% of the result. We get it into some sort of project management platform so that it can be assigned to someone. There is a clear person of responsibility, and there is a clear due date of when that's done, needs to be done. And then there is a system attached to that task. If you get to that point, that's actually the holy grail, because then there's no confusion. There's no discussion. If something goes wrong, the first question is, did you follow the system? If they followed the system, fantastic. It was a problem with the system. If something goes wrong, we need to tweak the system. We'll fix it. We'll make sure that never happens again. If they didn't follow the system, then that's another discussion around, hey, this is the way we do things here. I want you to follow the system until you get it just right. And I don't care if you got the system open or not, as long as you're executing it as we've outlined it. And if you can't do it as we've outlined it, I want you to have the system open until you can get it right. So it becomes infinitely easier for you and your operations managed team members if there's clear expectations.
Yeah, in my mind, David, systems equal freedom. Like as you were speaking, that's kind of to me how I feel about them. And again, going back in time, I certainly did not have that relationship with systems. I didn't see them as being that critical or that important. But as I remember, like we started going through this process of really documenting and building up our systems, and this is something that we're continually doing, and I think we'll always do because there's always ways to improve them and build new systems. It allows you as an entrepreneur, as what we call an entrepreneurial consultant, to really have a lot more freedom and to start to realize your potential more, because now you can figure out, again, how to improve things. So right off the bat, you're going to be able to see a difference there and a benefit, but also you feel a lot more confident in going out and bringing people in to help you in areas that right now they're probably not getting the attention that they deserve. And if you don't have those, then it's going to be hard to train people. And just also, like I remember having this conversation with Sam, where when you have a system and you're actually having a team member, documenting and updating their SOPs and the system that they are using and working on in their role, if for whatever reason that person doesn't work out and they're gone, like, something happens or they choose to leave or you choose to ask them to leave, whatever it might be, you still have an asset that they've been developing in your business. And so now it becomes a lot easier to bring in a new person and have that person up to speed and replacing that previous person, or just bringing on a new person. Maybe you've moved that initial person up higher in the organization, but the whole idea is like you have a lot more freedom and a lot more control because that system is like a real asset for the business.
One of the great easy ways to get this started for someone to build their own asset that you're talking about is, we talked about, you start off recording yourself doing all of these tasks. Then you get some form of administrative assistant once you've got a collection of these videos. And their first task is to go through these videos, identify the key steps, and start to pull out the bullet points and the system to marry along with these videos. And that's a great way to start developing it, because it trains this new team member on what needs to be done. They're now deeply sort of understanding the process because they're developing the system. And then shortly after them documenting it, hey, do you think you could do this particular task? And if they say yes, fantastic. If they say no, oh, well, what else do we need to have in here so that you could feel confident that you could do that? And you start to chisel away these administrative tasks. It's a great first place to start for the solopreneur or solo consultant. And even if you're a bigger firm that hasn't yet got the systems, then you might identify someone in the team who you identify as your systems champion, who has a soft spot for systems and processes, and you empower them. A little bit of a plug, you get them a copy of Systemology. You say, read the book, follow the process. We want to do it inside our business. We want you to be our systems champion, and create space for it. That's the biggest issue where most businesses don't get around to it, because it's no one's responsibility. They don't create the time or the space. And for that reason, you end up being very person dependent. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do here, is kind of move away from this key person dependency, whether it's the business owner or anyone for that matter.
So I want to shift the conversation now, David, to your business and the business model that you've actually chosen, because I think it's not unique in the sense that there are other people that are using these kinds of models, but it's not the classic, typical approach that I think most consultants would go to. And the reason that I'm saying this is, you could have taken the knowledge and expertise that you have around systems, because you've developed systems as part of your previous SEO kind of consulting business, and you could have gone off and just become a consultant yourself and worked with different organizations to help them to develop systems. But instead, or kind of where you are today, and I want to then bring you in on this, is you've built a software platform that allows people to kind of document and house all their systems in one place called System Hub. But what you've also done is you've intentionally gone out and said, you know what, I'm not going to be the guy doing the systems consulting. You've gone and you've kind of certified, or you've brought on or built up this kind of these systemologists, right? I believe, I want to know more about the model, but I believe, right, they pay to learn the systemology kind of, approach and strategy. And then they go off and now they go and work with organizations to help those different organizations in many different industries actually build systems. So walk us through, like, first of all, I guess, why did you decide to go with this business model as opposed to just you being a system consultant and going into, companies and organizations yourself?
This business was the first business that I ever created my dream, vision, purpose, mission right up front. The digital agency, I didn't do it. The video business, the rock and roll clothing, music store, the stock market education business, none of those businesses I ever had anything in my mind other than I want to make the most amount of cash that I can. And that's how I got started, and I kind of jumped from one to the next. Systemology was the side business while I was doing the digital agency, and I had a bit of a soft spot for systems and processes because I saw what it did for me. And I went to a Michael Gerber event, the Dreaming Room, and I came across this idea that my dream is to free all business owners worldwide from the day-to-day operations of running their business. Bit of a mouthful. I don't know how many people that inspired, but it inspired me. And I thought, yeah, this is something that I can get behind. And we started to build up Systemology, and I did run the consultancy business myself. And I was delivering done for you, one-on-one. I will help you systemize, identify your most critical systems. I will do all the documentation, all that sort of thing. Very quickly, we realized there is more demand than I could ever meet. And really, there's probably more demand than just about any of us, all of the consultants in the world combined could meet, because business owners need this type of help. So I thought, as part of that dream, I thought, well, it needs to expand beyond me. And my whole idea was to capture what is the system for systemizing a business, because a lot of process improvement methodologies and things like that, Lean and Six Sigma, they're all about improving a process, and that pre-assumes you've got a process to improve, whereas systemology is very different. We want to identify what you're currently doing, capture that, and bottle that. And I found it really freeing to know that as a consultant. When I started doing it, I didn't need to be thinking about how do I improve their business. It was really easy work for me to do, because I thought I'm just capturing what they're currently doing, their best practice. And I started to specialize in a particular vertical. Like, I knew about the digital agency, so I worked with a lot of digital agencies in that space. And then I said, I can bottle this. We wrote the book. The book came out and had some really great success, and it was a big springboard for me. And then we got a flood of these new inquiries again for done-for-you services. And I had someone in my world who saw the Systemology book, who happened to go through Profit First Professionals, had come across Value Builder, which is a John Warillo thing, come across Donald Miller and his certification. And he said, look, this here is solving a problem very uniquely. This would be a perfect addition for consultants as a value-added service, or a way that they can zig when the other consultants are zagging. So he said, let's package this up. And he brought in a few people that he knew that were already in the space and understood how this model worked. And we started to piece something together where we thought, how do we certify people? How do we license this content? How do we make the job of the consultant easier? And that was my whole thought, was, where do consultants get stuck? A lot of them struggle to get leads in business and stand out from the crowd. And a lot of them struggle to deliver, like, on a promise to solve a particular problem that a business owner has that hasn't been able to solve. So I thought all about these problems that I knew the consultant had. And then we tried to build the certification to solve that problem in a package.
Was there any mental barrier or roadblock for you? Anything that you dealt with just that was tough, going from, hey, I'm doing these done for you services, I'm going to organizations to help them to build out these systems, going from you doing that to now all of a sudden I'm going to actually pull back from doing that and now start to put the spotlight more on other people that would, like systemologists, as you call them, that they're now going to be kind of the way that I get this message out into the world. Like, was there anything just from a mental perspective initially, like any resistance that you had to that?
Trying to think if there was as we got going. I'm trying to think right at the time. At the time, I had one or two people, as I said, who were kind of guiding me through this. who had very clear visions on what it needed, the consulting certification would look like. So they kind of guided me through it. I remember, a meeting to hop on a System Hub trial, on our software to walk people through the platform. And I was jumping on those calls. And the team member I'm thinking about said, "You've got to stop hopping on these calls." He goes, "It's taking up half of your week by doing these calls. And it's like you're trying to pick up pennies when I'm telling you now, $100 bills are sitting over here by shifting where your focus is." So I kind of had, fortunately, some good guidance that way as to this is the bigger opportunity here, because it spreads your message much further. Like if my goal is to free all business owners worldwide from the day-to-day operations, we need messengers. And me doing one-on-ones on Zoom ain't going to cut it. I have to empower these other consultants to do it. So probably the biggest challenge I had, though, is once we got started, I'm very particular with way things have been delivered and designed. And then consultants come in with their own ideas. And I've kind of needed to get really comfortable with this idea that I'm delivering an 80% solution. They actually customize the final 20% to make it theirs, to go after their vertical, to integrate it with their business. And there will be tweaks and changes and things like that. And I need to help support them to get the biggest result. Because you're right, I need to showcase and shine the light on the systemologists. They are now the star of the show, not me, because that's really the only way for us to spread the message far and wide. So there's like a few challenges as we've grown.
What have you learned about the business model itself? Like, walk us through what are some of the best practices. If somebody was thinking, I may be working in the manufacturing sector, or I'm in food and beverage, or I'm in pharmaceutical, and I think I could also teach other people to leverage my intellectual property and build something or do some licensing. Like, what are some of the best practices when it comes to the business model and just the structure that you would say, maybe I thought of doing it this way, but that was wrong, or I did this and it didn't work out, or this is definitely the way it should be done. Any lessons there that you can share?
Definitely. And there's probably from two perspectives. One perspective is, and you shone a huge light on this when you came to present to our systemologists, and you shone this light on this idea of picking your niche and really going after that. Because that really, as a systemologist, if you identify that vertical, you capture best practice, and then you develop your way of doing things. When you start working with clients, you're selling them 100% solution, but you've already developed 80% of the way there. So you only have to do 20% of the work to deliver them 100% solution. They're paying you for 100% solution, but you're only having to do the 20%. So there's definitely, from a systemologist perspective, going after those niches is very smart. And we also had another person come in and speak to the group, Andrew Griffiths, and he wrote this book, Someone Has to Be the Most Expensive, Why Not Make It You? And I realized we've removed the pricing for our consultants now on our website, because we were anchoring a certain price, but we've already had systemologists 3x what our recommended retail price was for done for you services, because they went after a vertical, felt confident in their own skills and ability, understood the client and the problem that they were solving for them. And it was still a huge win for the client, and they significantly charged more. So there's some things with regards to the systemologists world, but I wasn't sure if you were asking the question about the business model, if I'd had any particular.
So you have your intellectual property, right? Which systemology and that process. If somebody wants to think about, let's say, replicating something similar in a different industry, because they'd be foolish to, how are you doing that? So you have your intellectual property. Do these people, the systemologists, do they pay you to go through a period of training, and then do they pay an annual fee, or is it a percentage of what they make? Walk us through some of those fundamentals.
So there's a few things there. One is there's a core training they go through, which is 3 months, where we work as a small group to make sure that they understand the material. They have to then deliver 2 case studies to make sure that they get certified and work with clients, and we'll review their work. Beyond that, there's an annual fee that they pay effectively to license the material. And we also teach them a few things to really kind of support them and help scale and grow their business. One thing that we've done is we've developed a group program that they can deliver. where we actually deliver the content through our portal. They just show up and do the live facilitation for the calls. And what that does is that's a great win because it kind of helps them scale their business, because then they could be working with 20 businesses at one point in time. We handle a lot of the back end delivery, and it keeps, us really closely working together, and it becomes a real big win-win. So that has been big for us. The other one was an idea Michael Gerber dropped in my lap around. He's written all of his vertical books, and this is something that I'm working on at the moment. We've identified a particular vertical, and we're thinking of doing systemology for that vertical. And we're going to do that quite a lot, where we identify who is the expert that we partner with, and then that becomes the really big opportunity. So this is more about a business model thing that I'm talking about with you. If you were to be licensing material, first there's working with just consultants who just want to take the material, work with it as a consultant. Then the next level up after that would be to work with a vertical expert. And then we've even discussed, which is, just throwing a huge idea out there at you, is considering, if we found the right partner, selling the master rights for a particular region to certify systemologists. Now, that would be the huge opportunity. So if you think about that, there's almost like 3 different sizes of deals that I'm talking about. But first, we'll start off, working with systemologists. We need to prove that model works. We can train them. They can get a great result. They get a huge return on their investment. We bottle that, and then we just keep going for the bigger deals. That's where we're headed.
Got you. So I know we only have a few minutes left here before wrapping up. One concern I think maybe some people might have around this model is, how do you protect your intellectual property? How do you ensure that, what you've worked so hard to develop is not taken into the marketplace and used in a way that, doesn't really align with reputation and kind of respect that you would want to have? Any lessons around that, or any kind of suggestions?
Definitely. A lot of it has to do with putting your stake in the ground. It has to do with trademarks. Like, we've registered quite a lot of, systemology in different countries and different regions through I think they call it the Madrid project, is how we ended up doing a lot of that trademarking. There are a few tools that are very uniquely systemology, like the critical client flow that we talked about. If you're going to develop a model like this, you have to get 1 or 2 things that is very uniquely different, and then you need to lock those pieces down. Because if it just feels like everything else, then someone can just take the piece that they like, go set up their version, and you're teaching and training up your competitor. And you want to be particular with your partners and how you police that. So I think the last thing I'll mention on that is, we're really conscious of, we've got Google alerts and things set up to identify when infringements on the trademark happen. And then we've been quite proactive. We've had about 3 instances I can think of now where we've had to take next steps to get material and content taken down, which is a pain. I don't really want it to be in that space, but it is the reality when you start licensing out your material. You got to make sure it's used correctly.
Okay, so 3 very quick questions before we wrap up, David. Number one habit that you've cultivated over the years that you feel has been really impactful on the success that you've had. If you were to pass that down to a loved one, someone that you care about, what would you say is that one habit that you've cultivated that you think could benefit somebody by really embracing it?
Get in the habit of recording everything. I mean, everything, every Zoom meeting that you're having, every interaction, wherever you can, and it's not too weird, have it recorded. It's the basis of forming any sort of system and having training someone come behind you. 2, from an authority positioning point of view, like if you're speaking on stage or you're presenting to a certain group, you can never go back in time to capture that stuff. So you might as well capture it now, because you don't know when it's being used. Like, I've got so many little clips of, whether it's me talking on TEDx or me on the TV, on the news, or working with Michael Gerber. I've got behind the scenes videos of me sitting down in these private masterminds. Like, I just record everything, because you never know when or how that might be useful, and you can't go back to get it.
Number 2, last 6 months, best book you've read, fiction, nonfiction.
I keep on rereading. I've mentioned it so many times. I sound like a broken record, but it's Traction by Gino Wickman. I just love that framework.
Yeah, great book. And then finally, where should people go to learn more about you and your book?
Yeah, they can head over to systemology.com. All the links are in there, or just head over to Amazon. Like if you're listening to this, actually, you're probably an audiobook person. Head over to Audible, search Systemology. There's an audio book of Systemology there. That's a great place to start, or on Amazon as well.
Fantastic. David, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us, Michael.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.